We're back on the Sort of Sports Podcast, episode 117. And I know you're just thinking, wow, Ryan, you literally just uploaded an episode. Probably less than a day ago? I think I ended up putting that up Wednesday. I recorded it Tuesday, but I think it ended up coming out Wednesday. Yes, it did. And I'm going to be dropping this Thursday evening before I've watched Kami's Eagles. So that'll be very exciting tonight. Looking forward to that. But why are you doing this? You know, what's going on? I just had kind of a lot of thoughts about college football. I was talking to a guy I know. We got on the topic of college football, and I've really noticed some things that kind of bother me about the current product, and so I wanted to bring that up. And I have some positive things, too, for what it's worth. Really, the big thing with me in college football is, and you guys understand this is the most I've watched college football in my life. This year, I have paid the most attention I've ever paid to college football. I've watched the most games I've ever watched in college football. I've kept up very heavily with my Colorado Buffaloes. Still very scared that Deion's going to leave for Florida State at the end of the year, but we will see. I have legitimate Heisman takes. If you want to know my Heisman take, we're not going to talk about Heisman that much. But if you did want to know, I do think Genty should probably win it. I love Travis Hunter. What he's doing is incredible. I think Travis Hunter should be a top 3 pick, maybe just the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, especially if you think he's going to play both sides of the ball in the NFL. Like, come on. I would love for him to go to the Patriots, give Drake May somebody to throw the ball to. That would be awesome. But Drake May's so good, they're starting to win some games. So there's that. Is Gerard Mayo good? Who knows? We'll figure out what they do coach-wise. But I have some legitimate thoughts on some areas of college football that I wanted to bring up. And we're going to start off with these AP rankings. Because usually what I do is I get lunch about 2 o'clock. It's when my class is let out in the afternoon. And I go to an area on campus where they always have ESPN on. And for one, you know, I kind of get annoyed with ESPN in general because if they wanted to run sports 24/7, they could. You know, they have enough broadcast teams. They could put on, you know, tennis at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, granted, maybe it'd be on tape delay, whatever. But they could actually have sports on the air all the time. And I do enjoy SportsCenter. Don't get me wrong. But like today, I was on ESPN2. They ran SportsCenter, and then they went, and all they talked about was college football. That's all they talked about for the last half hour. Then they went into a college football talk show that was just about college football. I'm like, what are we doing? I don't understand. We just spent a half hour on SportsCenter talking about college football, and then we're going to go into another show that's just going to rerun all those topics again. I mean, I guess if you really, that's all you want to hear about. But it just kind of frustrates me because you look at ESPN's programming, they very much, I'm sure if you ask them, hey, ESPN, you know, what do you like to broadcast? They're like, well, football's our most profitable. We like doing basketball. We really stay away from most other sports other than them. And then, of course, you know, UFC and all that, we have streaming. And I just kind of, it'd be like if I owned a cookie shop and all I ever sold was cookies. Well, then I put cupcakes out one day, and people are like, where are the cookies? I'm like, well, shit, I guess I should only ever sell cookies. It's like, no, I think people could like the cupcakes, but you got to work them in slowly. You got to train your audience. And ESPN, I think, could be, you know, really growing more sports if they, on 3 o'clock on a Wednesday, decided to run some different sports. Maybe they are tape delayed. Who cares? Let's get some people to watch tennis. They wouldn't usually watch tennis, right? Let's do some cricket. Like, let's do something. Instead of just, you know, I think it would make SportsCenter and some of the shows a little more, like they matter more, and they would have more to say if they had less of them, and it wasn't just a ton of SportsCenter shows where people just standing around talking. If you only did, 3 hours of SportsCenter a day, you did one during the day, maybe you do two, right? You do one during the day, you do one in the evening, and then the rest is all filled out with sports. And then if you still want to do like Get Up. Well, it's not called Get Up. First Take is theirs. I think Get Up is on, like, does Fox still do Get? I don't know. Like First Take, right? You still want to do First Take? Fine. So you do First Take, 2 sets of SportsCenter, an afternoon and an evening. Rest of the day should be filled out with sports. Some of them might be tape delayed, whatever. But when they do the Ocho, which was obviously inspired by the film Dodgeball, they show all these sports and people think that's fun. Why not run, a tape delay of what happened in Cornhole last night? I'm sure they have these contracts because they have it on ESPN Plus. They have a lot of this stuff. They have a lot of college softball on ESPN Plus. They have all these different things, but they're not running it during the day. Now, granted, I must admit, it's not like I've done my research and I went out and looked up what sporting events are happening today. But I guarantee you, ESPN is putting something out in the last 48 hours that they could have ran on tape delay, or maybe there's something they could even ran live this afternoon instead of doing back-to-back talks of college football. And at the end of the day, your coverage is completely biased of it because you're trying to get people to watch Game Day, which we're going to talk about Game Day in a moment. I'm very high on College Game Day. Very big fan of it. But I am saying, at some point, when you talk about college football so much, I just think, and you give yourself a bet, I think ESPN very much frustrates me because they could be growing sports in a better way instead of just making the big sports bigger. And you're talking to a guy who talks about, you're probably thinking, okay, Ryan, your show, you talk about 80% football, and most of it's NFL. We'd probably say like 80% NFL. And then you sprinkle in some NBA, some MLB. Are you really one to talk? I understand that, but I am not branded as the official sports network of the global world. That is not me. This is a sort of sports podcast. This is very much, it's pretty clear to anybody who listens to this. This is a one-man show. I edit this, I record this, I put this out on YouTube. Anybody who reads the descriptions, they're little jokes that I write for my own entertainment. And if anybody reads those descriptions and finds them funny, I appreciate it. I refer to myself in first person in those. It is not Ryan talks about this. It's I talked about this because it is me running it. ESPN is a team of hundreds of people that prides themselves on being like the sports network. Then why are we just doing the same 3 to 4 sports? I just don't understand it. I think it's a problem that's gone on for a long time, and I think they could very much improve their coverage, and they could grow sports. They wonder why some of these sports are dwindling in popularity because you're not talking about them. You're like, oh, well, baseball isn't profitable for us to talk about. Well, part of it's because you never do. You have to train your audience. They talk about the NBA so much, and they put out all these clips that I know guys who probably have watched one NBA game the whole season, but yet they have Cade Cunningham takes because they've seen the stats. They're seeing the stuff. Because ESPN puts it out there on social media. They put it out there in their talk shows. That's what really frustrates me, is they control the narrative, but then they get all pissy pants and are like, oh, well, that's not profitable. You could make it profitable. You could push. When Serena Williams was killing it in tennis, tennis was profitable for you because you chose to take advantage of her popularity and the fact that she's the greatest tennis player ever, and you used that, which is good. You should have used that. This is not me saying it's a bad thing. But I'm also saying you could have kept tennis popular. You just needed to find a different way to market it. You just had to put a little bit of effort in, and they didn't. They didn't. So now, women's tennis is nowhere near as popular as it was. Golf is on the uprise in popularity. A lot of guys my age play golf, really enjoy golf. ESPN could cover more golf. Could talk about it more. Now, granted, I understand they might not have the broadcasting rights to do some of these PGA events. I understand that. But they could talk about it. They could discuss it. They can obviously pay for that footage. They've done that before. And that could, be a new avenue. But they're caught up in, they broadcast college football a lot, so we're going to push that. And I just think it's kind of heavy-handed, and I think it just kind of pisses me off. So they could grow other sports. They have all this stuff on ESPN+. A lot of it's collegiate sports. And if they talked about it more or they just ran it on air more, people would be interested. I'm sure there was a college event this afternoon of some sport that ESPN put on ESPN Plus today that could have been running on ESPN Network instead of this random-ass college football talk show. Because here's the other thing. People are putting that on as background noise. Most people anymore probably go to their favorite talk radio or realistically their favorite podcast when it comes to that type of stuff. And it was funny because in the beginning of that show, the guy literally addressed, hey, if you like this show, make sure you download our podcast as an extra 2 hours of content. Good for that guy. Happy he gets to do that for a living. But let's be realistic. ESPN running that, it's just pointless in my opinion. What are we doing? I just don't understand. Now you're going to say, right about the Pat McAfee show. Pat McAfee show, I get it. It's been a very successful talk show for them. Let's say in my world, let's just do one set of Sports Center. It's the evening Sports Center. You do First Take in the morning. You do Pat McAfee in the afternoon. You do Sports Center in the evening. That would be elite in my opinion. Rest of the day, you should be filling up with actual broadcasts of games. These are just my thoughts. Maybe you're like, well, I love the fact that I can put it on at 1 p.m. and it's people just chatting it up. It feels like me and my friends talking. Maybe that's the case. I get it. But I guess in my world, anybody can go on their phone right now and find people talking about sports. When you're ESPN, you have the unique ability to broadcast sports really at any given time or do tape delays of stuff or something like that. And so to me, it's just very frustrating. I cannot, for you right now, just be like, hey, by the way, in case you guys are enjoying this, here is 45 minutes of a college hockey game. I can't do that. I can't do that. I don't broadcast college hockey. I don't have the ability. ESPN does, but then they choose to just do what I'm doing right now, which is talking about my opinions, which I'm not saying we shouldn't be out here doing shows about opinions. It's not what I'm saying. This is what I enjoy doing. But I am saying when you're ESPN, I get very frustrated when they're like, oh, well, some of these sports are dying. You could be growing them. So I understand this is a bit of circular reasoning. This is a bit of an argument, which I look bad. Hopefully I made sense, and hopefully you don't think I'm off my rocker. I don't own a rocking chair in this room. This chair sits flat. So I'm definitely not off my rocker. I might just be off my flat chair. All right. Let's talk about these damn AP polls. Because this brings back to what I was talking about. If you've been paying attention to the coverage, if you've been paying attention to what they've been saying, because if you pay attention with sports coverage, you could find what they're trying to make the narrative. You can figure them out. Late in that 2020 NBA season, well, I guess, was it early? I don't know. It was late in the season, but it was before the playoffs. Remember, we had that 6 months off because they had to stop play in March. All of a sudden on television, everybody was talking about how LeBron James should be the MVP and all this stuff. Out of nowhere. And honestly, if they didn't cancel the season in March, he probably would have ended up with it. They probably would have given LeBron the MVP in 2020. They were pushing crazy heavy for him late in that 2020 season. Crazy heavy. If you watch, all of a sudden, they will start to form a narrative in the way they want it to go. And then, when Joel Embiid does win NBA MVP, you go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because you're thinking about that clip of Kendrick Perkins you saw on Instagram 2 weeks ago. But guess what? The reason I used the Embiid one is because they were wrong. Jokic should have been MVP that year. He should be getting ready to win his 5th straight. We're not going to talk about Jokic today. We know he's the best player in the NBA. We know he's a generational talent. If the media wanted to market him correctly, I do understand he doesn't exactly have the best personality for marketing because he's not really into that sort of thing. But Jokic is a talent on the level of, like a generational talent, I would say, on the level of like a Steph Curry, on the level of a LeBron, on the level of a KD, where it was he's a generational talent that we're going to look back on and say he was the best player of this, they have on like NBA 2K, like the My NBA eras. It's going to probably go down as the Jokic era, especially if he gets at least one more ring. 4 MVPs in 5 years is absurd, especially when everybody knows he should have 5. It's just absurd. And one of the greatest offensive players of all time. Pretty much as soon as he wins a second ring, I'll probably put him as a top center all time, like probably top 3. Oh my gosh, Ryan, over Wilt Chamberlain? Yeah, why not? The Wilt shit gets so blown out of proportion. And then it's over Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah, Shaq's amazing. Don't get me wrong. But Hakeem and Kareem are clearly the top 2 best centers ever. And if I slide Jokic over Shaq, I'm okay with that because Jokic, no one's ever played offense to the level he does. It's just, he makes the entire team better while also putting up 35 points a game incredibly efficiently. It's incredible to watch. And when it's all said and done, people are going to be like, wow. Wemby had 50 last night. It's starting by the start of next year. I think Wemby's going to be the best player in the NBA. And everybody's going to have to watch out. So that's my quick NBA takes. Let's go back to the college football. I'm just all over the place today. All right. This is very clearly one of these episodes where I just had I just got stuff to get off my chest. This is not a review of things that happened. This is just me firing off. This is firing from the hip. I'm whipping it out there. Okay, here's the AP poll. So number 1 is Oregon. They're 10-0. I understand this. This makes sense. Number 2 is Ohio State, 8-1. Number 3 is Texas, 8-1. Number 4, Penn State, 8-1. Number 5, we get to an Indiana team that's 10-0. We'll go back to this. Number 6, Tennessee, 8-1. Number 7, BYU, 9-0. Number 8, Notre Dame, 8-1. Number 9, Alabama, 7-2. Number 10, Ole Miss, 8-2. Number 11, Georgia, 7-2. Number 12, Miami, 9-1. Number 13, Boise State, 8-1. Number 14, SMU, 8-1. Number 15, Texas A&M, 7-2. Number 16, Army, 9-0. So let's dive into this. Because I don't know if you were listening, but some of these things are quite odd. And this is what I was talking about if you pay attention to what ESPN does. Because if you've been paying attention, all of a sudden on these talk shows, they've been mentioning that I would hesitate to kick a 3-loss team out of the college football playoff. A 3-SEC team, is what they said. A 3-loss SEC team out of the college football playoff. You're telling me you would hesitate to kick a 3-loss SEC team out of the college football playoff? Let's run this down real quick. 3 losses? Undefeated teams ranked in the top 20. We have 1, Army. 2, BYU at 7. And 3, Oregon at 1. That's 3 teams out of the 12 that are undefeated at the moment. Sorry, 4. I forgot about Indiana. My bad. They're forgetting about Indiana too, so, it's not a big deal. So, 4 out of the 12. So a third, if we just said undefeated teams right now, a third are in, right? Let's go to 1-loss teams, regardless of SEC or what conference. 1, Ohio State. 2, Texas. 3, Penn State. 4, Tennessee. 5, Notre Dame. 6, Miami. 7, Boise State. 8, SMU. That's just in the top 20. That's already 8. Washington State's ranked 19th at 8-1. In the top 20, 8 of them have 1 loss. You're telling me a team with 2 more losses should be in the top? Absurd. Absurd. They are setting us up for this exact scenario in which a week from this Saturday, Indiana will play Ohio State. Indiana is undefeated. If Indiana loses to Ohio State, they will end their year. They most likely will beat Purdue the next week, and they will end their year 11-1. Ohio State will also end 11-1. Ohio State wins the Big Ten championship. They get an automatic bowl spot. They are setting us up for Indiana to not be in the college football playoff, despite them having 1 loss. That's what they're setting us up for. They're going to Florida State, Indiana. Now, Florida State's obviously a big joke now because they're so bad this year. Well, guess what? They're going to Old Yeller, Indiana, in a 12-team playoff. They're going to take them out back, put them down. 12-team playoff. Absolutely absurd. Absurd. That's what they're going to do. Here's what's absurd right now. Boise State is ranked 13th in the nation. And this is the AP poll. I'm not looking at the one that it's not. This isn't even like the ESPN college football, like with the college football playoff poll. Because remember, that one gets more outrageous sometimes. It doesn't always match the AP poll. This is the AP poll. 13th is Boise State at 8-1. Okay? Because remember, sometimes the college football playoff just says, we don't like how the AP did this. We're going to do it this way. Just keep this in mind. I'm looking at the one that's more reasonable. And even here, it's still insane. Boise State's 8-1. You want to know who their 1 loss is to? Because I'll tell you. Boise State's 1 loss is to Oregon, the second game of the year, 37-34. It's first week of September. They lost by 3 to the team that's number 1 in the nation. Will you please explain to me how Ohio State has 1 loss on the year, and they are ranked number 2 in the nation? They lost to Oregon, 32-31. We watched that game. It was, obviously, a lot of people watched that game. It's on NBC mid-October, okay? They're ranked number 2. Now, your argument is, they're a Big Ten team. They play better teams. Fine. But even though Boise State is Mountain West, it is insane to me that they're not even ranked in the top 10 when their 1 loss is to the number 1 team in the nation. Alabama has 2 losses on the year. They lost to Vanderbilt. I want you guys to realize Vanderbilt's unranked. And Tennessee, both in October. Vanderbilt 40-35, Tennessee 24-17. Now, Tennessee is ranked 6th. Alabama is ranked 9th off 2 losses. 1 to 1 unranked team, 1 to a ranked team. Now, granted, they are SEC, but they have 2 losses. They have 1 more loss than Boise State. Boise State lost to the number 1 team in the country. Insane to me. Insane the way this works out. And here's what they're going to do, is if Boise State doesn't make the college football playoff because they don't get an automatic bid for winning the Mountain West, if they don't make the college football playoff, let's say Boise State wins out. Let's say Boise State goes 11-1, and they don't put them in the college football playoff. They say, screw you. And Colorado wins the Big 12, which I'm hoping we do. I really think we can. We got to win this weekend. Oklahoma State's going to be a tough game. Kansas will be tough, actually, too. But Colorado, let's say we win the Big 12, right? They're going to give the Heisman to Travis Hunter instead of Ashton Jeanty because he's in the college football playoff and won the you know what I mean? That's my bet. Now, I will say, out of everyone, the Heisman is consistently the most reasonable when it comes to college football. So maybe I shouldn't accuse them of these things. Because Jaden Daniels won Heisman last year, did make college football playoff. Year before that, Caleb Williams won the Heisman, didn't make college football playoff. They are consistently very reasonable when it comes to the Heisman. I legitimately cannot remember, since I've started even paying attention to who won Heisman, that the wrong guy won. I have to give the Heisman people credit. So they'll probably still give it to Jeanty. Maybe I shouldn't accuse them of this. But it's absurd to me that the College Football Playoff Committee wouldn't want to put the probable Heisman winner in Jeanty in the College Football Playoff. Just for entertainment's sake. Especially if you're going to put in a 2-loss team or a potential 3-loss SEC team. Insane. Let's run through who these top teams have lost to. Because BYU at 7-9-0 is also insane. Yes, they're Big 12, and that's not the SEC or Big 10. I understand that. But Tennessee lost to Arkansas 19-14 in October, and they're still ranked 6th. Arkansas is not ranked. Arkansas is not ranked. Just, I want to point this out. How is BYU below them? How is BYU below them? I need this to be explained. Okay? Penn State lost to Ohio State 2 weeks ago, 20-13. They are 4th in the nation. Indiana hasn't lost, and they're in the same conference. They're basically just waiting for Indiana to lose to Ohio State. That's why they put them at 5, because they don't think they'll beat them. Insane to me. Just insane. Texas lost to Georgia in October, 30-15. They're still ranked 3 in the nation. Georgia has 2 losses and is ranked 11th. Can you please tell me how Texas lost to a team that's ranked 11th and has 2 losses in Georgia? Georgia, in case you were wondering who they lost to, Georgia lost to Alabama in September, 41-34, and Georgia also lost to Ole Miss in November, 28-10. That was last weekend. Ole Miss is now ranked 10th. Alabama is ranked 9th. So you're just putting all these SEC teams at the end of the rankings. So basically the college football playoff will be the 4 conference winners and a bunch of SEC teams. And I feel like when we expanded this playoff, we were heading in a really good direction. And they're going to screw it up. They're going to screw it up. And it's just stupid. It's really stupid. And Boise State should be in. SMU realistically should be in. Like SMU is going to, I guess SMU is probably going to win the ACC, so it's fine. SMU's 1 loss is to BYU for what it's worth, who's undefeated and ranked 9th. Sorry, not 9th, 7th. That was in September, 2nd week of the season, 18-15. So. Just think we're going down a bad path. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And if Army goes undefeated and you're putting in teams from the SEC that have 2 or 3 losses, it's just insulting. It's insulting. Any team that's undefeated and is playing Division I FBS should make the playoff if you're putting in 3 loss teams in the playoffs. 2 losses already outrageous. 3 losses insane. It's absurd. You got to cut that shit. All right, let's talk about me giving the SEC actually a lot of credit, though. The SEC on ABC is part of the reason that this college football season I've watched the most of. And I think a lot of people have paid a lot more attention to college football this year. I think the expanded playoff has made people more intrigued. It gives people more to talk about. It makes people have more hope for teams because it feels like, you can take 1 or 2 losses and still potentially make the playoffs. Especially when they're talking about putting in SEC teams with 3 losses. I think part of the big success was this SEC on ABC deal. Sorry, a lot of letters there. And it was pretty genius because what the SEC on ABC has essentially done is, so I'm just going to pull up the broadcast schedule real quick. I think that'd just be the most efficient way to pull this off. Let's go to the SEC on ABC schedule, right? We're going to go to week 2, right? Their national broadcast games. They did Arkansas at Oklahoma State on ABC at noon. Then at 3:30, they did South Carolina at Kentucky. Then at 7:30, Tennessee at NC State. That's the first week. A lot of games that aren't SEC on SEC action. Started off not too hot, right? Let's get to week 7, October 12th. And this is when things started to ramp up. At noon on ABC, you're watching South Carolina at Alabama, ranked team. At 3:30, you're watching Texas versus Oklahoma, Red River rivalry. Then at 7:30, you're watching Ole Miss at LSU, night game. Every single one of those games had at least one ranked team in them. Let's go to the next week. Auburn at Missouri at noon. They're not exactly cooking. Sorry, that's not on ABC. That's on ESPN. They took noon off here this week. I want to take that back. So they take noon off because it wasn't a big enough game. That's pretty smart, actually. Well, maybe it wasn't even supposed to be. Maybe it's not even a big enough game. ABC just had something going on. Regardless, works out. Keeps their slate cleaner. Because at 3:30, we're doing Alabama at Tennessee. This was on October 19th. They did that at 3:30. Then, that evening, 7:30, Georgia at Texas. She just had 2 games that are 2 of the biggest games of the week. One at 3:30, one at 7:30 on the same network, ABC. Let's see what they did the next week. 3:30, Missouri at Alabama. It's not that Missouri's that exciting, but you're putting on Bama at 3:30. People are going to watch. That evening, LSU at Texas A&M. Not exactly 2 of the best teams in the game, but people know LSU and people know Texas A&M. It's at 7:30. It's like when they do Niners-Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Doesn't matter if they're not the top dogs anymore. People are still going to tune in, right? Right. Let's see what they did the week after that. 3:30. They took noon off this week. They went Florida versus Georgia. Doesn't matter how bad Florida is. That's an interesting game. It's an interesting game. Doesn't matter. That evening, we'll say they might have missed here. Texas A&M and South Carolina. Not their best work. Not their best work, but you can see they're missing some big teams that are on bye this week. They bounce back the next week, though. At noon, Florida at Texas. Turnaround, 3:30, Georgia at Ole Miss. 7:30, Alabama at LSU. 3 huge games, one day. They've essentially created their own NFL slate. They essentially do their own, moved up by an hour, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8:15. That's what they're doing. And they're doing it with one conference. One conference. It's genius. Every other network should be trying to replicate this. Every conference should be trying to do this. And because they were able to get Oklahoma and because they were able to get Texas, they now can have a slate that's powerful. We are consistently having interesting matchups, even if the teams aren't the best in the nation. They aren't ranked in the top 10. It doesn't matter. It's LSU, Texas A&M. Those are big programs. It's very impressive what they've done at the SEC on ABC. The majority of college football games I've watched this year are SEC games. The only non-SEC games I watched are a couple Miami games, Colorado, of course, a couple Ohio State games, and then every once in a while I've seen some random Big Ten games. That's it. That's it. That's all I've watched. You talk about what I've watched the most of, easily SEC football because it's easily accessible on ABC. They do a really good job with the presentation and really like the score bug. They make it feel like a big deal. They've essentially have their own NFL slate as a conference. Genius. Every conference should be trying to replicate this. And it's showing up in the most watched college football games in 2024. So this is through week 7. This is the nearest data I could find. I understand this was published about a month ago. We're missing a lot of big games, but I just want to run this down because this is important. Let's go through the top 15 most watched college football games in 2024 through the first half of the year. Okay. Number 15, Oklahoma-Auburn. That was on September 28th on ABC, 4 o'clock, 5,000 viewers. Your average NBA viewership, I think, at the moment. Let's see if I can pull that up. Well, we don't have to do that. I don't know if this is exactly what I want, but it's really only... There's no way it's only 9. No, I was about to say, this is wrong. I was like, it's not 6,000 viewers. I was like, I know better than this. This is wrong. I think it's, I read that wrong. That is my mistake. I don't know how to read a chart. Yeah, my bad. So when I said 5,000, I meant to say 5 million. It put up top viewers parentheses 000. So I have to times everything by 1,000. That's my mistake. I was about to say the average NBA viewership, I'm pretty sure, is like 4 million. I want to say. Let me look this up. Just a regular season. Sorry. Average NBA viewership. Yeah, 1.5. Okay. Let's look up the average NFL viewership because you're like, well, Ryan, that's basketball and football. NBA is dying, which on paper, yes, but in reality, no. Okay. Oh my gosh. Is that a game? No way that's per game. What? Okay, wow. The NFL is just dominating. Wow. NFL at this point is averaging 21 million viewers a game this year. That's some of their... Wow. Yeah, that's up 1%. That's insane. 21 million? Whew. Okay. That's absurd. Like, that's actually absurd. Apparently, Lions-Cowboys on Fox at 4:25 on October 13th this year had 24 million people. That's insane. That's insane. Wow. Okay. Back to the college football thing, though. That just props to the NFL. That's so absurd. Okay. So back to college football, though. So the first game, number 15, Oklahoma-Auburn, SEC on ABC game at 4 o'clock, 5 million viewers. 14, Tennessee-Arkansas. Really only one of these teams is that interesting. Guess what? It's an SEC on ABC game at 7:30, 5 million viewers. What's number 13? Oh, it's another SEC on ABC game, Alabama-South Carolina, 12 p.m., 5 million viewers. 5.9 million if you want to be exact. Number 12 game. Oh, another SEC on ABC game. Tennessee-Oklahoma at 7:30, 6 million viewers. I want to point out only one of the first 4 are at 12 p.m. We're going to continue this trend. Number 11, my boys, Colorado, Nebraska on NBC, 7:30, 6.3 million. Good job by us. Rivalry game, let's go. Number 10, USC-Michigan was on CBS, 3:30, 6.3 million. Number 9, Florida-Miami, SEC on ABC, 3:40 p.m., 6.6 million. This was in August, first week. Number 8. Oh, I actually watched that game. I just remember watching that now. That was the first college football game I watched this year. Actually, it was Florida-Miami. It was a nice little moment there, reminiscing. Number 8, Kentucky-Georgia, SEC on ABC game, 7:30, 7 p.m., 6.6 million. Number 7, Oklahoma-Texas, Red River Rivalry. Goodness, I did that one bad. Red River Rivalry. SEC on ABC, 3:30 p.m., 7.6 million viewers. Let's do number 6, Georgia-Clemson. SEC on ABC game, 12 p.m., this was in August, 7.9 million. Number 5, Texas A&M Notre Dame. First week of the season, ABC, again, SEC on ABC, once again, 7:37, 8.2 million. I want to point out the 5th and 6th most viewed games of the college football season occurred on the same day on the same network. There are 3 games in the top 10, the 5, 6, and 9, that all occurred on August 31st on SEC on ABC, and they each had over 6.6 million viewers. Absurd. Let's keep going. Number 4, Texas-Michigan on September 7th. It was on Fox. Want to point out, this is Fox's only game in the top 15 so far. 12 p.m., 9.1 million. Third, LSU USC. This was on ABC, SEC on ABC. Again, 7:37 p.m., 9.2 million. Your highest non-SEC game, number 2, Oregon, Ohio State. NBC, 7:30, 10.4 million. Number 1, Georgia, Alabama, on SEC on ABC, 7:30 on September 28th, 11.9. If you want to round up, basically 12 million because it's 11,985,000 people. That's the numbers. Absurd numbers for the SEC on ABC. If you would like me to point out how many games of this top 15 were on ABC, it was 10 of the 15. Insane. Now, why is this? Why is this? What is happening? Because it's part of it's what I said. They have created a NFL slate with a conference. And it's very impressive. Incredibly impressive. I also want to point out that of the top 15 most viewed games through week 7, 3 of them were noon. I'll point that out again. 3 out of the top 15 were at noon. Well, audience, Ryan Klinger asks, what is the Big Ten's prime slot? Oh, yes. We're talking about Big Noon Kickoff. The Fox show made for FS1 that premiered on August 31st, 2019, it's the pregame show of Fox College Football. You know, College Game Day is obviously the big boy. Everybody loves College Game Day. Everybody loves the Home Depot hats. It's the big show. Fox said, oh, we can do it. We can do that. We got it. We're doing our own College Game Day. We're going to call it Big Noon. First of all, just from a talent perspective, Big Noon is Matt Leinart, Mark Ingram, Brady Quinn, Urban Meyer, Charles Woodson. Okay? And Rob Stone. It's Big Noon. College Game Day is Reese Davis, Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit, Steve Coughlin, Desmond Howard, Pat McAfee, and Nick Saban. Coughlin is just there to do like the betting stuff. So it's basically Corso, Herbstreit, Davis, Howard, McAfee, Saban is the main table, and then they'll have the guest pickers. That's not even close. Not even close. I know I was dogging on ESPN earlier, but if there's something they do well, it is ESPN's best coverage, and the reason they talk about it all the time, and they know it, is College Game Day, college football. That's what they're best at. McAfee has been an incredible get for them talent-wise. Because like him or not, he gets the kids involved. He brings a fun atmosphere everywhere they go. Like he got the LSU fans to chant "Suck that Tiger Dick," and it was hilarious on live television. He got the Cal Berkeley fans to do their chant. He consistently he gets within the culture of each college, and that's what makes it fun. He brings personality to every college. He makes every college feel different. For Texas, he was wearing his big hat. He had the big belt buckle. He tries to get within the college feel. He makes every episode feel different due to the college they're at. He does a great job with that. And Saban's really come into his own. Who would have thought Saban would be the one busting out funny lines? The big one going viral is, of course, when he said if that was the first homework Paul Skeens had ever done. I guess I should explain. Paul Skeens said he'd been doing a lot of research for doing his picks because him and Livy Dunn were on. And Coach Saban said, oh, probably some of the first homework you ever done at LSU. And Livy Dunn like legitimately laughed hard. You could tell it wasn't like a fake, like, oh, he. Like, no, she legitimately grabbed Paul Skeens and laughed really hard. Like, Saban cooked with that joke. And it was just funny to watch her, like, legitimately be like, oh, I did not expect him to say that. That is really funny. And Skeens was just kind of like, whoa, I can't believe you said that either. And, yeah, who would have thought Saban would have been, like, kind of the funny guy that bounces off McAfee instead of, like, Mr. Business. You know what I mean? Like, Herbstreit's the one that's very, like, a lot more business with it. And obviously, rest in peace to Herbstreit's dog, Ben Herbstreit. That dog was always really nice to have on the broadcast, and it was very sad when they ran the video honoring him. And Corso's iconic. Corso's super iconic. It's a very good team. And I don't think Big Noon has anywhere near the chemistry. I guess Joel Klatt's on that show too, isn't he? Yeah, Big Noon has nowhere near the chemistry of Game Day. And if I messed up who the Game Day people are, it's because I barely ever watch it. And I'm reading off their Wikipedia page, whereas Game Day, I could name it off the top of my head. The only guy I couldn't name was Coughlin because he's not at the table. Game Day is essentially college football's NBA on TNT crew, the Inside the NBA crew, with Ernie Johnson, Kenny the Jet Smith, Shaq, and Charles Barkley. That is essentially college football's equivalent, and it's a great show. And I look forward every Saturday I'm watching college football, I watch Game Day. I don't care where they're at. I'm watching it. Big Noon is nowhere near as good, and that hurts the Big Ten because Big Noon goes heavy on the Big Ten, and it really hurts them. Game Day goes heavy SEC. Doesn't really matter because I'm not going to lie to you all. I enjoy the Big Ten, but they are not marketed as well as the SEC. They are not. They are not marketed as well. Michigan State should feel like a big deal. They do not. Indiana should be all over the coverage right now. They are not. Now, part of this is the deck is a bit rigged against them. ESPN is obviously part of Disney, which owns ABC. This is all, you know what I mean, a little too in the family. It's, a little too much in the family here because obviously they want to make sure the SEC teams are talked about on the shows and marketed well because that's the games we're rebroadcasting. They have to make sure people are interested in Texas A&M LSU. I understand this. But Fox and Big Noon, if they're going to do a lot of Big Ten games, need to do a significantly better job of making Big Ten schools feel like a big deal. It shouldn't just be Ohio State. Penn State should have felt like a really big deal this year. And Big Ten right now has a deal with CBS, NBC, and Fox. So everybody but ABC. Fox was usually the big one for Big Ten, but once the SEC left CBS, Big Ten went and got in bed with CBS, and they also got with NBC for some games. And I'm telling you, none of those networks are doing a good enough job making them feel like a big deal. Michigan State should feel like a huge deal. Michigan State, Michigan, regardless of the records, should feel like a big deal. If I was building, right, you came to me, you said, how are we going to make Big Ten football feel like as big of a deal as SEC football? The first thing you've got to do is go heavy on how important these programs are. You look at the rivalries and you look at the team's histories. You need to make USC feel like they are the royalty of college football. They've always been a super successful program. Pull out the pictures of all the alumni, la-di-da, go heavy on it, right? You know what? You're already trying to copy Game Day. For Big Noon, get the guest pickers. Bring in Caleb Williams to do a pick for the USC game, right? Do those things. There's no one saying you can't do guest picking. Like that's no one's gonna be. It's not like you're having Urban Meyer put on mascot heads. Because you started doing that, then you should be crucified, like for taking Lee Corso's thing. That's too far. But guest pickers, do it. It's not like College Game Day is the only ones who are allowed to do guest pickers. But you look at the Big Ten, right? The way I would market it is I would go heavy on USC being like the royalty. UCLA, they should be like, shots at the beach, make it super sexy, right? They're like cool, Michigan State, Michigan should both feel like old guard, very tough teams, right? Indiana should be marketed as the plucky underdogs. Iowa, that rough and tumble, market them like that. Same thing with Wisconsin. Ohio State obviously should just feel like kind of the same way they market Alabama, where it's like, us, come on, it's us. Penn State, you should go heavy on that student section on how that crowd is unlike anything. Oregon should be realistically be the same thing as the way they market Ohio State, the way they market Alabama, the way they market Georgia. Right now, the only two teams that do a good job marketing are Oregon and Ohio State. It's the only ones. They've forgotten how to market Michigan because they're not good now. There's still ways to market teams even when they're bad. It's still very doable. And when Michigan's good in 3 years, they're going to be like, oh shit, how do we do this? They're doing a bad job. They're doing a really bad job. And we look at where Big Noon has went this year. They did Penn State, West Virginia. Technically a rivalry game. Didn't feel like a big deal at all. Wasn't marketed like a big deal. They went to Texas, Michigan. Everybody went to Texas, Michigan. Game day went to Texas, Michigan. That was a big game. I mean, like that obviously, right? They went to Bama, Wisconsin. Why? Why would you do that? I understand you're trying to promote Wisconsin. I get it. But I don't know. I just don't see a scenario in which that feels like a, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Wisconsin was going to beat them, even if you're there. Like, does it matter? I don't know. They went to Marshall, Ohio State, right? Okay. This is where the pattern starts. Out of the, let's see, how many games we went through, right? Well, I guess I could just think about it for a second, and I would know, but we're just going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Well, they have one less than game day because game day went the 24th to Ireland, so they have 12. Okay. Out of the 12 games Big Noon has covered, how many do you think were Ohio State games? I'll let you think. Oh, wait, they have their future games lined up. So let me actually have to recount. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So they have 14 because they have their schedule filled out to the end of the year. Out of the 14 games they've done, how many do you think were Ohio State? I'll let you think. Think about a number. That is reasonable. You're probably thinking 3, 4. It's 5. I will say, I give them credit. It's less than I thought it'd be. It really is. They're going in Indiana, Ohio State next week, and the week after that they're doing Michigan, Ohio State. Very good job. Now, Big Noon has gotten excited because they're able to cover Colorado. So they've been going to Colorado games. They've done 3 Colorado games this year. Okay? But I want to point out, that means out of the 15 games, right? Did I say 15? No, 14. Sorry, 14. Out of the 14 games they've done this year, 8 of them are Colorado or Ohio State. That can't happen. That can't happen. I just don't think that's a good idea. You're not going. First of all, your show's not as good as game day. It's not. You do the celebrity guest picks, I think that'd be great. But doing Colorado, like, I get Colorado's big. I understand that completely. Let's look at where game day goes, because that's probably what you're thinking. Like, okay, Ryan, where's game day go? Here we go. Game day. We're not counting the Ireland game they did on August 24th. We're starting at the first week of the season, okay? They did Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Then they did Texas, Michigan. Then they did LSU, South Carolina. Then they did Tennessee, Oklahoma. Through the first 4 games, we've had 0 repeats. Week after that, they did Bama, Georgia. Week after that, they did Miami, California. Week after that, they did Oregon, Ohio State. We are 8 weeks in, no repeats. 9th week, we get our first repeat, Georgia, Texas. Both of those are repeats, but they were also ranked number 5 and number 1 in the nation. Week after that, they went to Indiana, Washington. I want to point this out. They went to Indiana, Washington, October 26th. You know where Big Noon was? Nebraska, Ohio State. I actually give them credit. At the time, that was probably relatively interesting because that was when people were still kind of infatuated with the Dylan Raiola thing before no one cared. So fine. But props to College Game Day for promoting Indiana there, right? Next week, they did Ohio State, Penn State. Makes sense. Next week they did Alabama, LSU. Week after they did Tennessee, Georgia. So everybody always gets on game day for going crazy SEC. And they have went SEC heavy. The majority of those games were SEC, but they're not a lot of the same teams. And I give them a lot of credit. And they did go to Indiana, Washington, and they did go to Penn State, Ohio State. And this week, I think they're doing, what is it, Georgia? Where is game day this week? I think, and it's not Georgia. It's it's Bama's game, whoever they're playing. No, Bama's playing Mercer. It's not them. Was it Tennessee? Was I right? I'm just going to have to Google where's game day this week. I have genuinely zero clue. Tennessee, Georgia. Yeah, okay. I thought that earlier. Maybe I don't know what was going on with me. Yes, they're doing Tennessee, Georgia this week. I understand people were like, really? But like, I don't know if there's really a much more interesting. Like, next week's the big week because we get Indiana, Ohio State. The David versus Goliath matchup. But I give game day credit. They did go to Cal when Cal was rolling hot, and they went for Miami Cal. And they did Indiana, and Indiana's undefeated. And they do a very good job of making every school feel special. I want to point out that repeats, they have no team more than 3 times. Georgia, they've had 3 times. Actually, they only had Georgia 2 times? Hold up. I might be wrong. Yeah, they've had Georgia 3 times. Okay. They've had Georgia 3 times. Big Noon is a Colorado 3 times and Ohio State 4 times. Well, so far Ohio State 2 times, but it's going to be 4 times at the end of the year. So they've had Georgia 3 times. They've had Georgia 3 times. They're probably going to end at 3. And by the end, Big Noon will have Ohio State 4 times. I just want to point that out. I think they are doing a better job spreading. Now, granted, they are spreading a lot across the SEC, but Big Noon could be doing the same thing, spreading across the Big Ten. They could. They could have been covering more Indiana games. They went to 1 Indiana game. Nebraska, Indiana. This is the one they went to. Now, you're probably like, Ryan, this has just been a lot of bitching and moaning. And you've kind of been all over the place. What do you want from Big Noon? I think it's pointless to just do a shittier college game day. I think it's really pointless. I think if they wanted to do a good job, they would start going to games that had a lot of personality, but weren't exactly the biggest in the rankings. And I understand some people are going to make fun of that and be like, oh, they're trying to gas this up. But it could be fun. Go do Army playing somebody when Army started hot. Army's still undefeated. Follow a narrative. Stop trying to follow the rankings. Game day is following the rankings and giving the personality, and that's what's making them the better show. Along with, you're not going to beat that game day, table. They have a better table. They have a better show. That's the end of it. You can take the celebrity guest picks thing. You could do that. Start going to games that are full of personality. That would be better off for you. Go to these schools that we're not always seeing talked about, and we're not always seeing on television. Ohio State doesn't care if you're there for Big Noon. You're there all the time. And game day comes there too, and people like game day better. Why not go to a Boston College game? Pick a team that's got a winning record, better than it should be. Doesn't have to be ranked. Go to their game. SMU should have had like 3 Big Noon games by now because they're doing better than expected. They've been hot. You should have been on them. Now, I'm not sure if ACC is affiliated with, I don't think ACC is affiliated with Fox. I will admit that. But I am saying, to some effect, something like that should be the way it is. They would be better off trying to focus on these schools that aren't always covered. I understand there's network lines to jump through and logistics, and I get all that. I do. But they should have been in Indiana earlier than halfway through the season. They should have. You're just doing a crappier game day. Make it different. Go for something different. But the biggest problem with Big Noon, and the biggest problem with why the Big Ten is falling behind the SEC in popularity, is the fact that it's Big Noon. Making your show based around the fact it's at noon is stupid. Game day is around the same time, but game day is going to cover a night game. Game day can go to a night game. Big Noon's always covering games at noon. You're automatically pigeonholing yourself. And I know it's like, oh, college football at noon. That's part of the tradition. I understand that. But the fact that Ohio State now has majority of their games during the day hurts the Big Ten. That's their big dog. And the reality of the matter is, I understand real college football fans love a noon game. I get that. But you're going to get your highest viewership in the evening. Do I need to pull back up the chart? There were 3 games out of the top 15 that were noon games. 3. Fox only had 1 of those games, by the way. I want to point that out. So Fox, if you want to step it up, start doing some night games. Get rid of Big Noon. Rename it something. Don't make it noon only. If you're going to keep it noon only, make it very different. Go to these places we don't always see on TV. Have a lot of personality. That would be good. What you're doing right now, it's just dumb. It's just worse game day. Now I understand you're also too big to fail. Who cares? But I care. We could have a better product. Let's step it up. Now, as far as the Big Ten goes, I would be talking to these guys saying, hey, we need more night games. We need more, NBC. How do we do a game of the week where it's every Saturday night we're running a game on NBC that is a big Big Ten matchup? That's what I would do. That would be huge for the Big Ten. Or Fox. I don't care what network. But I'm saying NBC was the one who did Oregon, Ohio State. And consistently put Ohio State in those night spots. Put Penn State in those night spots. Put Michigan State. Early on, make it those games they play each other. Over time, work it so, even Maryland, Michigan State is getting up there. Pick the teams that are on the up and coming, right? Indiana was pretty good this year. Let's see if they're good next year. Give them a night game early on. See what happens. It's college football. It's very much an any given Saturday type of scenario. We've seen upsets a lot this year, and I think it's been one of the best seasons of college football of my lifetime, and it's growing a lot. The sport is growing. It's becoming more popular, and a big part of the reason it's become more popular is because this SEC on ABC shit is good, and people are watching the night games, and people are looking forward to it like it's an NFL slate. You can have that with the Big Ten. You can do that. Start doing like a big matchup on Saturday night on NBC or on CBS, or whichever network wants to do it, but start doing it. That would help the Big Ten. We're going to continue to fall behind because a lot of those big games ABC's doing is in the evenings, and that's growing the SEC. Even if it's just Texas A&M LSU, people are tweeting about it, people are watching it. People that like sports are going to watch sports. People are out to dinner, it's on. It's a Saturday night. Most people are hanging out or they're at a sports bar. They're eating somewhere, right? It's big to have you be the thing on. And I understand, well, now we're going to be competing with the SEC. The SEC doesn't give a shit. They're already competing with you guys. They're going noon, 3:30, 7:30, saying, yeah, just watch us all day. And here's the thing. This is the most college football my mom has watched either. Guess what she texts me about? Mostly SEC games. And my mom's a big Big Ten backer. She's always trying to watch Big Ten games. Well, guess what? SEC's got the better matchups, and they have more night games. She's been watching most Saturday nights. She's watching SEC football because that's what's on. Step it up. Step it up. If you want to just make it Ohio State play in the evenings most of the time, that's fine. Other than the Michigan game, put them on the evenings. Fine, let's do it. Let's do it. Why not? Come on. I don't know how long I've been talking. I don't remember what time I started recording this, but I think that went on a long while. And I have other things I want to talk about still, but these are probably going to be pretty short because I legitimately am getting really thirsty, and this usually doesn't happen. But I'm like, honestly, I think I got kind of worked up there. So, all right, I got a hot take that might age really poorly. I don't think he's going to be bad. I think Cooper Flagg is going to be really good. I want to state this before. You're already rolling your eyes. I know. Cooper Flagg had a big game the other night for Duke. Got him a big win. Whatever. he's going to be the number one pick. I think they're going to make sure the Wizards get him, call him like Captain America, put him in the red, white, and blue jersey. Hopefully the Wizards get new jerseys for when he comes. Washington having the Commanders and then having the Wizards be good would really grow, that as a professional sports market, blah, blah, blah. I could really, the whole Captain America thing with him, he even kind of looks like Steve Rogers, right? He's got the blonde hair and, all that. I could see him, them doing that. Okay. But did I talk about on here about how like all the like top prospects anymore are like built the same? Like they're all just like Paul George now, where it's like everybody's like 6'7" to 6'10" and can just do everything. Like good. Like everything's really good. Like they can shoot well, they can defend well, they're decent playmakers. Like everybody's just Paul George, everybody's Jason Tatum, everybody's Brandon Miller. And Cooper Flagg is just that, right? He's just that again. He's just really good at everything, and he's like 6'10", I think. And that's cool. That's impressive. But I'm intrigued to see how he turns out in the NBA. Because this is why I really like Dylan Harper, because Dylan Harper is a very different build, right? Dylan Harper is a type of prospect we haven't seen in a little bit, which is like, I'm an offensive demon guard, like James Harden was years ago. Like we haven't seen a prospect like that in a minute. Anthony Edwards is exciting because we hadn't seen it. That is a type of build that always works in basketball. It's the Kobe build. It's the Jordan build. I'm between 6'3" and 6'7", and I just go to the rack and I can, body anybody. And also, by the way, I'm becoming an elite shooter. That was Jordan. That's Kobe. That's now Anthony Edwards. That build also always works. And I really like Dylan Harper because he's a build we've seen before, but we haven't had in a while. We haven't had like that top level guard like that. We've seen a lot of Cooper Flaggs. What makes him different than Brandon Miller? Because Brandon Miller is very good, and I think Cooper Flagg would be really good. But my concern is Cooper Flagg going to be the best player in a championship team level talent, or is he a Scottie Pippen to somebody's MJ? Now, I understand I'm talking this about a guy who's 17 years old and playing college basketball at Duke. This is very, first take of me. I have to admit these things. But I'm just telling you guys this because this thought has crept into my mind. Is he so good? Like, what makes him different than Brandon Miller? Because Brandon Miller is the same build and he's really good. And it's not like he's Cade Cunningham, where Cade Cunningham is very much a playmaker. And that's what makes him different. Cade Cunningham... it's kind of like, what if you made a poor man's Luka? And that was like the whole selling point behind Cade. If you guys remember, I was really high on Jalen Green. And I was wrong because Jalen Green is that build I've been missing, which is the Dylan Harper build. And I don't care that Jalen Green dunked on Cade the other day. It really doesn't matter. Cade's so much better. It's not even close. Hopefully Dylan Harper's better than Jalen Green, though. Not that Jalen Green's bad. He's just nowhere near as good as I thought he'd be. So I just want to say, it's going to be interesting with Cooper Flagg. They'll probably make it to at least the Sweet 16 with him. Feels like the top prospect teams never win the national championship anymore. It's been a long time since that's happened. I think this college basketball season is going to be really fun. I need to watch more regular season college basketball. Maybe this is the year I watch more regular season college basketball. Maybe it'll be in the same year I watched more college football and more college basketball. Maybe this will just be the year. Because it is shaping up to be really fun college football. Really fun college basketball season. We've already had a really good college football year. Because college basketball has some of the top players in the world again. They have a top-level prospect, Cooper Flagg, and they have Ace Bailey, and they have Dylan Harper. And VJ Edgecombe is interesting. Like, they have multiple interesting talents. And it's going to be really fun. But Cooper Flagg's supposed to be really good. I understand all these things. I just wanted to point out what makes him different. And I think that's what he's got to prove to me over the cycle before the draft. Same thing with Ace Bailey. Is like, what makes you different than these other guys? What makes you better? And maybe Ace Bailey isn't, right? Maybe Ace Bailey's just going to be like really good. That's going to be that. But what makes Cooper Flagg this talent that people are talking about is going to be an MVP one year, win championships? Because you saw it with Victor Wembanyama. It was pretty damn clear. And now we're seeing it play out in real time. I think when it's all said and done, Victor Wembanyama might end up the greatest basketball player of all time. He has all the tools, and he went for the KD build and not the Hakeem Olajuwon build, and that's no disrespect to Hakeem, but being 7'4", maybe 7'5", and playing like Kevin Durant is going to be unstoppable for the next 20 years. He's already the best defender in the NBA, and he's in his second year. What is going to make Cooper Flagg have that instant impact? Because those guys who are really special, those really special guys, like a great number one pick is like Anthony Edwards or Cade Cunningham, where by their fourth year, you're like, wow, this guy's really good, and he's an all-NBA guy. A generationally good number one pick is somebody by their first or second year, you're questioning how much better they are than most of the other players in the NBA. LeBron was like that. Zion was supposed to be and wasn't. Wemby is like that. With his first year in the NBA, he became second Defensive Player of the Year voting. That's absurd. It's never happened before. He had first place votes for Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie. I understand Cooper Flagg's not going to be as good defensively as him. Cooper Flagg's apparently a good defender. He's not going to be as good defensively as Vic. That's just the end of it. But what proves to me that he is more Victor Wembanyama than he is Cade Cunningham, Anthony Edwards? And that is no disrespect to Cade Cunningham or Anthony Edwards. I love Cade Cunningham. I think he's going to be the reason the Pistons are eventually finals contenders. Heartbreaking loss the other night, by the way, to the Bucks. But the people are acting like people are acting like Cooper Flagg is more Wemby than he is Cade Cunningham when it comes to talent-wise. Obviously, Wemby was very unique because, holy shit, this guy's huge. But they're acting like it's that level. You know, Cade was drafted, people were excited, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, you know, insane hype like we got with Wemby, we got with Zion, we got with, who was before that? They just got insane hype. Anthony Davis. You know, what makes him different? And that'll be interesting because, like, you look at Anthony Davis, he had all that hype coming out, and he's really good. Anthony Davis is incredible. Anthony Davis consistently been a great player in the NBA. He has not been and probably never will be the best player on an NBA championship team, and that's the end of it. I know you can argue to me, well, if the Lakers win the finals this year, he might be better than LeBron. LeBron just had a great game last night. I don't want to hear that. So, it's fine if he's Anthony Davis. Nobody is going to be pissed if they take the number one pick and get Anthony Davis. Hell no. But I'm pointing out, we're acting like he's more Wemby and LeBron than he is Anthony Davis and Cade Cunningham. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Does this make sense? I don't know. We're going to see. I think we're getting a little too excited. I guess what I'm saying. I think he's really good. It's not like I don't think he's going to be good. I think he might be an all-NBA guy. But I don't think he's going to be an instant impact the way Wemby was. And that's fine. People are acting like he is, and that just doesn't make sense to me. Because there's nothing that's like absurdly unique about him. Okay, that's the end of that. That take might age horribly. For what it's worth, I want him to be good, and I want him to go to the Wizards, and I want him to make the Wizards fun. I think it'd be really fun. I do. I really do. But Dylan Harper's the guy I'm really intrigued by. I'm not that intrigued by Ace Bailey. I don't know how to feel about him, but I think it's a really interesting draft. I think it's going to be a really fun season for college basketball. I think the NBA is already having a really good season. I'm going to the Cavs game Sunday, so if they lose, it is on me. I am fully accepting that. Trey Mann's going to have like 40, and it's going to be my fault. But that's it for that. Let's talk about television, I guess. I probably should put out my thoughts on Outer Banks. But like, I guess... Okay, I don't know. Do I want to do this right now? Yeah, we'll do it. This one goes out to anybody, mostly my mother. If you haven't watched it yet, there is going to be a major spoiler. And if you care, stop listening now. And if you're my mother, stop listening now if you care about spoilers, because someone does die in the show that is important. And if you care, stop listening. Thanks for listening to this episode. It's very kind of you to listen to the Sort of Sports podcast. I very much appreciate it, because this has been a very rambly episode, just me getting things off my chest. So I'm saying, if you made it this far, I appreciate it. Sayonara. See you in episode 118 or never again. It's up to you. I have no power. everybody who's still here, I'm going to spoil Outer Banks Season 4. Here we go. And if you just don't care, here we go. I've been misspeaking a lot this episode. This thing is what happens when I improv more. All right. Whew. So they killed JJ. JJ dies at the end of Outer Banks Season 4. I was afraid of this. Genevieve was like, they did something big at the end of the season. I really want to see what you think. And I was like, wow, they killed JJ, didn't they? Because I was thinking, the only character that it made sense for them to kill was him. And I'll get to that in a moment. And Genevieve was like, no, Ryan. And she's really good about lying to me and something like that. And maybe that's a bad sign. But I'm really bad about that. Like, if she would have said, Ryan, did they kill JJ? I'd have been really, oh, and then it would have caught me off guard. I'd been like, oh no, she guessed it. I'd been really bad, been like, no, and it would have been really obvious. She was really, I don't know how, like, damn, I was impressed. Like, I believed her. I was like, oh, okay. She really seemed like she was telling the truth. And no, she just completely got my ass. So I don't know how she did that. Maybe I should be concerned, but I'm just kind of impressed, to be honest. And I believed her. But then the episode came on, and they're just, you know, when a character's going to die in a show, your luck's going to run out soon, JJ. You just keep being so dangerous. I don't know if, keep pushing your luck. I like to live life on the edge. If I die, I die. Shit like that. He didn't actually say if I die, I die, but basically did. Like, they were just doing that shit where it's like, okay, he's going to die, isn't he? And he did. It was sad. And people are very upset online. Apparently, it was because there's drama behind the scenes between him and the actress who plays Key. Maybe that is the case. I'm not sure. I do want to state it was very weird this season how I have never seen a romance more toned down from where it was before than him and Key. It was very odd. It's like that romance was written out. So I will say that does give some credence to those rumors. Netflix has been trying to shut down those rumors, but it is really weird how that romance just like evaporated from the story. As far as what I thought about the show, I do think it is the best season other than season 1. I think it's slightly better than 3. Why is it better than 3? Because 3 was like, we're finally ending these narrative plot threads from season 1 that realistically should have ended in season 2. Like, season 2 doesn't really need to exist. I think you really could have taken all the good parts of season 2 and made season 3 a really good episode of television that, like, rivaled season 1. That if you took elements from season 2, reworked them, and took season 3, put them together, it would be excellent. And it would be almost as good as season 1. But they didn't. They clearly didn't know what to do for season 2. They made crappy stuff. And they turn around, season 3 is a little bit better, season 4 is even better than that, and season 5 they're setting up to be interesting. But the problem is, with the JJ death, and the reason they had to kill him is because he is the character that we know the best, and he is the character we care about the most. Because you look at this show, the two best characters are clearly Rafe and JJ. I think a lot of that has to do with those are clearly the two best actors on the show out of the children actors. I say that, like, they're not children, they're adults at this point, but you know what I mean. They're older than me. But the guy who plays Shoop, I think, is pretty good. But I also just think his face is funny because he looks like Steve Martin. I just picture him like Steve Martin in Pink Panther. He's like a cop too, so it's funny. Anyways, the guy from Whose Line that played Sarah's dad was really good. And it was just funny to me. I'm like, you're the dude from Whose Line, and you're just out here being a terrible person. You're good at it. What the hell? But it made the most sense to kill him. That would have the greatest impact on both the gang and the audience. And clearly that's why everybody's so upset, saying they ruined the show. Because they killed him. And I think if you kill Pope, people would have been like, oh, damn, Pope died. And that's sad. I like Pope. But I'm going to be honest, if they killed Pope, people would just kind of be like, oh, damn, Pope died. If they killed John B., it'd be like, ah, shit, that sucks. Like, all the main characters would be upset. But like us as an audience, John B. hasn't been the main focus of the narrative since the first damn season. He got Sarah Cameron pregnant this season, and it's a side story. You got a 20-year-old pregnancy out here, and it's a side story. Actually, she might be 19. I think she's 20, though. I think they're supposed to be 20. Anyways, as far as my problems with this season, I said before on this podcast, the show is at its best when it's doing National Treasure and when it's doing, won't say Indiana Jones because Indiana Jones is like the like the holy grail. See what I did there? Of adventure flicks. And so National Treasure is a little more I don't know. I want to be respectful to Indiana Jones. So I love National Treasure, but it is poor man's Indiana Jones. So I compare things to that because comparing things to Indiana Jones is just an unfair comparison. So that's why it's more compared to National Treasure in my mind. Indiana Jones, everybody has that first franchise they get really into when they're younger. Mine was Indiana Jones, and that's why to this day I love Indiana Jones. And every Indiana Jones adjacent thing I've seen and enjoyed to some level. The Rundown, National Treasure 1 and 2, Sahara, I love Sahara. The Mummy, I'd say The Mummy or even kind of Indiana Jones adjacent, to be honest. The only one I haven't watched is Romancing the Stone. It's the only one I'm missing. I really should watch it at some point. I do like Kurt Russell. So, but back to Outer Banks. My problem with this season lies in this. The show is at its best when it's doing National Treasure and when it's doing the Pogues, Kooks, Outer Banks shit. This sets us up for a 5th season that basically is void of Outer Banks. Now, granted, they're going to find some way to get the narrative back to OBX, and they'll put some trailer together that says, like, all paths end in the OBX, or OBX marks the spot. Something to that effect. All maps lead to OBX, right? That'll be, like, the promotional stuff. Like, somehow they'll find their way back to Outer Banks. But the show's at its best when it's there. And that world they've created there and that culture with the Pogues and the Kooks, and the fact it always feels like it's stacked against them and the policemen. Like, we feel like we know this town. We feel like we know these people. And that's when the show is at its strongest. And I just wish we could still put the treasure. It's not that hard. We're making up these adventure stories. We could make it so it's in the Outer Banks. We don't have to go to Morocco. You chose to do this. I don't know why we do this. I don't like it when they leave the Outer Banks. I think it's goofy. I think it's kind of dumb. They're kids my age that are off in Morocco fighting, like, essentially terrorists. Like, we're just getting out of hand. And we've set up the villain for the next one, I think, is going to be, like, the leader of these terrorists. Well, not terrorists, but they're like a cult type thing. I'm not sure, but, It's going to be Groff and, like, the cult leader of the guys who want to steal shit. And that'll be the bad guys. Groff will probably die early on in the 5th season. Or maybe he'll be there to the very end. But we'll have another villain who will be like the leader of these bad people. I forget what his name was. Because they already set that up with, like, John B. looking at the bank statements or whatever. And I do think that hurts the show. I think the 5th season will be pretty good at what it's doing. But, they've shifted the show now where it's no longer about the Outer Banks. And I feel like they felt like that was a way to mature the show. That was a natural path to head forward, and that killing JJ really symbolizes the end of their youth and the fun Pogelandia versus the Kook shit. I get that. But I think that was one of the best parts of the show. I'm still going to watch the 5th season. I'll probably enjoy it. But they will never recapture the magic of the 1st season because the 1st season had the National Treasure stuff woven perfectly to the small town crazy, thing with outsiders stuff. And that's what made it great, when it was very Goonies. Now it is more National Treasure. Oh, Goonies. It's another great Indiana Jones adjacent film. I love the Goonies. Childhood favorite of mine. Me and my buddy Dylan would always watch that every time we hung out. Even in high school, anytime he'd stay over, we'd put on Goonies in the background before we fell asleep. I have woken up to that Goonies disc menu more than any other menu into anything, or really any other TV thing in my entire life. I don't usually go to bed with TV on. I've woken up to that Goonies DVD menu so many times, and it's like a pile of treasure and a waterfall in the background. It's on bonus features. So, oh my gosh, classic film. But when it was more Goonies, when it was more Outsiders, when it was like that, that's when the show's at its strongest, and we are now losing that. I will also say, I'm interested that the writers challenged themselves. They said, hey, we are very aware of the fact that we don't write conflict well about JJ. So we eliminated JJ. We're going to challenge ourselves. You know what? I'm proud of them. But in the same sense, he is the best character, and he is the most likable, even though he's frustrating. It is going to be interesting to see how they can carry on the narrative without him. I'm very intrigued. So that's my thoughts on Outer Banks Season 4. I still love the show. Still one of my favorite shows. But nothing's ever going to be as good as that first season. And when I'm older and I'm rewatching the show, I probably will rewatch that first season many times. And the other seasons, I might rewatch a couple. And that's okay. But that's reality. It's not like Stranger Things in where the first season is incredible. And the second season is a bit of a drop-off, but it's still really good. And the third season is the weakest, but it's also very fun. So it's like, well, I can't hate that third season. It's super fun. But we were losing something there in Stranger Things Season 3. I was like, wow, we're never going to recapture that magic of that first season, are we? Season 2, tried to, and it's played a little too close to the chest. Season 3 went a bit of a different direction, made it more outrageous, fun 80s, and it kind of made it less what it was. And then Season 4, they just locked in and gave potentially the best season ever. I mean, Season 4 of Stranger Things rivals that first season. It really does. And Season 5 could potentially be on that level too. So I give Stranger Things a lot of credit as they eventually end up rivaling it. I don't think Outer Banks is ever going to rival that first season because what made that first season special is now gone. Like, you're not doing that now. Now you are fully national treasure. And that's fine, but we've kind of said goodbye to the Pogues Kooks stuff, and I think that kind of ended when JJ died. And that's all right. It's just disappointing. If you want to know my thoughts on Sarah Cameron being pregnant, okay, that's something to introduce to the narrative. It's going to be cute when they have their kid and they name it JJ. I've seen the theory online that the whole show is him telling his kid how she was named or he was named. I'm willing to bet it's going to be a girl because he specified it's good for a boy or a girl. So do it as a girl because it'll be extra cute. I don't know. I don't think they're not going to have anything bad happen to her while she's pregnant because that's terrible. That's awful. So, I will say I give him credit for finally doing a death that was actually real and not the 45,000th fake out of Outer Banks. So I give them credit. It kind of sucks that it happened to happen to one of the best characters, but I get it. They finally did say, you know what, we're going to kill somebody, and we're going to be legit about it. I give them credit. They did something Stranger Things has never done, which is kill one of the main cast members. And I must give them credit where credit is due. Because Steve probably should have died when Eddie did, but they killed Eddie instead. And it's fine. I just don't really understand. It's all right. For people being like, this is a fun show. Oh, Outer Banks, it's so fun, and you're ruining it. I understand that, but I clearly think they wanted to take the narrative in a more serious way for this last season, and that's fine. And it's not like we were getting, 3 absolute bangers of, Pogues and Kooks fun show. It hasn't been the most fun Pogues Kooks show since that first season. It really hasn't. So it's, to act like we've lost something. It's like, yeah, the first half of this season was more like season 1, except the writing was worse, and it was frustrating me because I was like, I know you're trying to be more like season 1, but you're not doing a good job. And yeah, whatever. I love this show, but it's just, it's, I do think we're in a weird space where a lot of these really good shows that come out nowadays are mini-series that are then expanded into multiple seasons. And I think that's where we get into this issue of, well, how do we continue this narrative? Because Stranger Things is supposed to be an anthology show. Stranger Things is supposed to be every season was a different thing. But then that season 1 was just like lightning in a bottle. And it was so popular, and it was so instantly iconic that they had to continue it. And so here we are. And, I'm trying to think about this. I do think it's intriguing because you look at the Penguin show. I just finished that last night with RJ and my buddies. Evan watched it with us too. It was great. And it was really good. Penguin was excellent. People are like, where's season 2? I don't think it needs season 2. I think that was a great show. It was 1 season. It was 8 episodes. And it was really good. Really good. Really good show. Really good crime show. Really great Batman show. Like Gotham show, I guess I should say. It was really good. Batman obviously was not in it, except the bat signal at the end, which is sweet. Colin Farrell killed it as the Penguin. He is like the Penguin in my mind. I love Burgess Meredith though. He's great. Danny DeVito, I'm not a fan of the way Burton does Penguin. I like Mob Boss Penguin, and that's what they did in this show. And he's still a weirdo freak, but it's just more because he has mommy issues. Not like he has like a massive nose. His nose is quite large, but not as big as that Danny DeVito, like weird little freak one. But Yeah, it was really good. I mean, I don't have any other thoughts on Penguin other than the fact it was really good. And if you have literally any interest, you should watch it because you'll like it because it's really, really good. But it's interesting. I do think that hurts some of these shows where you think about a lot of the big shows early on. Like not even early on. Let's just go 10 years, right? 10 years ago. Your biggest shows on TV, like Breaking Bad had just ended. Game of Thrones is just starting up. Two very critically acclaimed shows that were both intended to run for multiple seasons. And Game of Thrones, I think most people say the best season's around like 4 or 5 range. 3, 4, 5, I think is what most people say. I've never watched Game of Thrones. Full disclosure. Breaking Bad, most people say season 4. I don't know anyone else who would really argue other than that because it's the Gustavo main season, right? His face off and everything. That's usually the one, right? Better Call Saul, I think most people say the best seasons are also in the middle range. I think the last season was really critically acclaimed, though. Succession, I don't think too many people say the best season is the first one, for the most part. Lost, I think most people say it's like the mid-range once again. Like a lot of these big shows of the last era were... I know you'd say, well, Better Call Saul premiered at the same time as Stranger Things. Yes, but Better Call Saul was written more in the style of an early 2010s show. It was not written in the way they write the streaming shows. It was written by Vince Gilligan still wrote it the way he would write Breaking Bad, whereas Stranger Things was written more in this modern style, and it was intended to be a miniseries. And a lot of these shows that are intended to be miniseries, I think they struggle with continuing on the narrative, and it takes them a couple seasons to find their footing, and they're never really able to capture that magic the first season. I think a great example is True Detective. I know I always find a way of TV to come back to True Detective Season 1, but it is so perfect. It's like the most perfect season television ever. There's probably a world in which HBO said, why don't we just do more of Russ Cole? He's great. Let's get more of him. And, oh my gosh, Woody Harrelson character, right? Let's get more Russ Cole and Woody Harrelson's character. Let's do more of them. And he'd be like, no. It's a smart move by the writers to say, no, this is an anthology. We're doing a different detective next season. Now, granted, none of those seasons since have been as well liked, and I haven't watched any of them because I haven't heard they're anywhere near as good as the first season. Because he knew he wasn't topping that. That was his idea, was that first season. That first season was his idea. And I think that sometimes we get into the issue with some of these streaming shows where Outer Banks Season 1, yeah, it ends on a cliffhanger, but it was very clearly, and they did not have... They're lying to you if they tell you they've had this planned out since the beginning. I know for a fact they did not plan when they wrote Outer Banks Season 1 to have J.J. Maybank die in Morocco to his father that was secretly royalty in Outer Banks. That's not real. That's not. No, there's no way they even thought of that last time they wrote. They thought of that when they were writing this season. And that's fine. But I do think it's somewhat what's hurting some of these shows when it comes to longevity, because people get mad at all these shows getting canceled, but I will say some of them that go on, they struggle to find their footing after that first season. Just think it's an interesting thing. I mean, it took Outer Banks till the fourth season. Not Outer Banks. It took Stranger Things back till the fourth season to be able to have a season as good as the first. Just think it's interesting. So. Okay. Well, I think that's all from me. The election coming around and all that got me in the mood to watch something like a political thriller. Or it's not even a political thriller, just like a show about like a president, right? And I felt like House of Cards was going to be so like, I know it's supposed to be really good, right? But I was just kind of like, I don't feel like watching a show full of all like, I don't know. Maybe I will eventually. But I was like, if I was going to watch a show that's that serious and that like, look at all these people, look at the terrible things they're doing, I would just watch Game of Thrones at this point. I haven't watched Game of Thrones. It's apparently like the best shit ever. I would watch that because I haven't watched it. I had no interest in watching House of Cards. I was intrigued, though, by The West Wing because I think I really enjoy Aaron Sorkin. I understand he can be a little corny, a little over the top. I've seen the clips of The Newsroom. Yes, he could definitely be over the top with his stuff, like overly melodramatic. But I do love The Social Network, and Moneyball is one of my favorite movies ever. Really love Moneyball. And he directed Moneyball, and he wrote Moneyball. And clearly he is one of the most influential, I would say, screenwriters of the last 20 years. And West Wing is his television peak in a lot of ways. West Wing is his most acclaimed TV show, won a ton of awards. And I was curious because I have no real interest in any of the other TV shows he's written, especially not The Newsroom. Definitely not The Newsroom. And you're like, wow, Ryan, you love True Detective so much. Why don't you just watch Mindhunter? I will eventually, but I like to bounce around. And I was going to start Burn Notice Season 5. And I was like, but you know what? If I'm in the mood for West Wing, I might as well watch that first pilot, see how I feel about it. And if I like it, I'll watch one season of West Wing. Then I'll watch Burn Notice, and it'll be fun because it'll be like in the old days, when you had to wait for a season for like 6 months, then you came back to it. Nowadays, you got to wait like 2-3 years for a new season, which is just absurd in my mind. How did we manage to get to the point where we used to pump out 20-episode seasons like every 6 to 10 months, and now we're pumping out 8-episode seasons every 2 to 3 years? What are we doing? I don't understand. And you can't tell me, oh, well, the production value. Not all of these shows are on that level of production value. I do not understand. We are being inefficient. We can step this up. Come on. I think it's part of the reason some of these shows don't have as good of returns as they want is because they take too long. Take way too long. Get on it. Come on. I give you more credit if it's animation. I understand. Like The Boys, there's a lot of effects that has to go into The Boys. I get that. I do. Same with like The Mandalorian. But not all these shows need to take this damn long to get new seasons. That's just, they don't. They really don't. Like what? Come on. Are you serious? Outer Banks does a pretty good job. I will give them credit. I'll give Outer Banks credit. They do a decent job. I mean, in the span of 4 years, they've had 4 seasons. That's all I can ask. They do a good job. Probably the 5th season will come out early 2026. That'll probably be when the next season drops. And I give them credit. It's a good job by them. But it is fun to take like a couple month break between seasons. And so I finished Burn Notice Season 4 in October, early October. And we'll see when I finish West Wing Season 1. Oh, and yes, that is me saying I'm going to watch the whole season. I'll explain that in a moment. And then I'll start Burn Notice Season 5. I still have to watch The Fall of Sam Axe, like the TV movie they made all about Sam Axe. Looking forward to that. Maybe I'll watch that one night when I just feel like it. But yeah, Burn Notice I love Burn Notice, one of my favorite shows of all time. But I started The West Wing, and I really enjoy it. It does have that Sorkin melodrama, but I enjoy it for what it is, and it's very fun. It's a really good procedural. I mean, it's not really a procedural, I should say, but it's really good episodically. I have real affinity for that late run of, yeah, it's episodic with an overarching narrative that Burn Notice has, that Smallville has, and that West Wing also has. I love that era. I think it's actually a little more episodic than I figured, because I thought it was going to be like, I didn't expect, Lost is one of the first early shows, based off what I know of Lost, to be like, yeah, it's episodes, but, you got to watch this in order. Like, come on. Whereas, Burn Notice early on, if you really watched out of order, you'd be okay. It'd be a little confusing with some of the stuff late that connects, but for the most part, you'd be fine. Because it's really the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes every episode that's the overarching narrative. But the main dish of the episode you could get, the main 35 minutes. Say it's the same thing for Smallville. Really for Smallville, early on, you could just watch really in any order, right? And then based off what I've heard is, J.J. Abrams made Alias, and then, which I'd probably like Alias if I ever got around to it. And then he made Lost, which I was going to either try Lost or West Wing, and I was in the mood for West Wing, so I tried West Wing. So sorry, Lost. You lose once again. Eventually, I'm going to watch you. I probably will really enjoy you. But my understanding is J.J. Abrams kind of changed things up when he made Lost, and that gives way to Breaking Bad, Walking Dead, and then that gives way to eventually where we're at now, where basically we're making 10-hour movies we chop up, which I think has improved, I will say. I've been complaining about this since I started the podcast. One of the earliest episodes I complained about that, and I will say they've stepped up. Outer Banks this season did a better job having each episode be more like an episode. I've been very pleased, actually. Some of the strides we're making. But Stranger Things is the biggest culprit of the 10-hour movie. And they're probably going to do it again for the 5th season, and that's fine. But I think people do miss that style. That's why you saw something like Suits become very popular last year, because people do miss the fact that you can watch one episode, be happy with it, go to bed. And there is an overarching story, but for the most part, you can watch one, you get a full story, and you feel good about yourself. You have something to think about, you have something to talk about, whatever, right? And West Wing's like that, and I very much enjoy that. We're getting the overarching story right now of Rob Lowe and his girlfriend. Well, I think it's his girlfriend, like the call girl he got with. Let's see where that goes. And like the end of this last episode is going to lead right into the next episode. Now, I've only watched the first 2 episodes. The end of the second episode ends with like a attack by Syria on this like plane, and Martin Sheen was not happy about it. So he's going to react accordingly. And so that's going to be what goes on in the next episode, I'm assuming. But I've really been enjoying it. I think it's very entertaining. We'll see if I keep enjoying it this much. I'll just watch the whole first season, and then I'll switch over to Burn Notice. But very digestible, very fun. It really flies by fast. I think it's because Sorkin's doing so many plots at once that you just feel it goes by really fast. It was really funny when Tim Matheson showed up as the vice president in West Wing, and he's also frequently showed up as Larry, who's one of the main villains in Burn Notice. And I just thought that was really funny. I was like, oh, you're in both these shows. I don't think I'll ever love it as much as I love Burn Notice. It is nowhere near as built for me as Burn Notice is or Outer Banks is, but not every show has to be built for me and my exact tastes. This show is very good, and I very much like it. And we'll see if I like it so much that I end up watching all, 7 seasons, I think? I know Sorkin only wrote like the first 4, but I don't care. If I like it that much, I'll just watch it all. So we'll see where I go with it. But I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm glad I picked it over House of Cards or Scandal or any of those shows. I was intrigued by this one, and I've been enjoying it. Martin Sheen really kind of makes it for me. He does a great job, which is no surprise. He won awards over this for good reason. So, all right. That is it from me. Thank you for listening. I will see you all in the next one. All right, this was a lot for me and for you. So thanks for tuning in.